You're watching Fairfield's very own television station, FPAC Channel 9. I'm Susan Kessel, and today we have Connie Boyer and Nan Cameron. We're here for Opening Fairfield Doors, our show that Connie and I have been doing for several months now. I'll let Connie tell you about our sponsor and our mission statement.
Okay, our sponsor for today's show is Central Valley Bank, and we thank them and Greg Lohnberg for participating in this. The sponsorship will help pay for the tapes in order to bring this show to you. And we're also giving a tape to our guest of honor.
Ooh, good. Hope she'll want to watch it.
And then she can share that with her friends. And our mission is to bring you Fairfield's finest. Actually, the mission actually states that by opening the doors into the lives of the people and places of Fairfield, we strive to bring you. Boy, I just can't spit it out. We will strive to promote.
I didn't want to do it.
We will strive to promote appreciation, awareness, and understanding of each other, and that is our goal. And
that's a pretty good mission.
We are getting some positive feedback, and I hope that still keeps coming. And if people have an idea out there of someone they know that would make a really great show and bring some interesting facts and et cetera to Fairfield, please let us know by calling the station, or you can call us at home. We'd appreciate that. So let's go ahead and start with today's show with Nan. Nan has lived in Fairfield for several years.
Forever.
And
not really. A long time.
Now, I have to say, I was very excited to do this show because Nan's always been a really special person to me. In fact, several months ago, some friends and I were riding in the car, and we were talking about people in our lives that had been mentors.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, well, Nan Cameron, I think, has been mine. Some of the others mentioned were Jackie Parkin. And we really were saying how that we think we need to do this more. It's kind of lost. People today don't do the things that I've known you have done as far as supporting people, making them feel good and positive and reinforcing good things that they do and giving them direction. And I know you've done that for me.
Well, thank you, my dear. I think, though, a lot of the reason that it isn't done as much today is people are too busy.
Right.
People, working mamas who don't have time to get as involved with their children, or as involved over a period of time. Maybe they do in shorter things, but I see it in my own kids and my grandchildren. They do a lot of fun things together, but they have to race to do them. And I think that's too bad because it doesn't leave time for all the other associations. And some of my nicest associations have been with people, 2 or 3 times my age. Well, not anymore, but for a while there. And you gain so much. My friend Ben Taylor, who died this year, I learned so much from Ben every time I went to see him. I didn't learn enough, obviously, because when he was in the hospital at the end, and we were feeding him in the evenings, one night I got there a little too late, and he had eaten everything, and in the middle of the plate was a piece of meatloaf. I said, Ben, why didn't you eat that? I don't like meatloaf. I said, yeah, I've been bringing you meatloaf for 2 years. Why don't you tell me you don't like meatloaf?
He liked your meatloaf.
I don't know what happened to my meatloaf.
Oh, well, something, and I know that you have done this, and I have done it probably because I know you have done it, is sometimes if you see someone in the paper, a young person that has done something, accomplished something, you'll sit down and write a note and just say, great job, whatever.
Well, we all mean to do it.
Right.
And I mean to do it more than I do. As a matter of fact, I did a lot of that today. This was a free day for a change, and I got a bunch of things off that are way overdue, but I guess that doesn't matter if you get them done eventually.
Right, it doesn't.
You want to tell us about some of the community activities you've been in? I mean, before we started, we were talking about Parsons College days, and so take us back a little bit and tell us about some of those involvements and things that were happening in Fairfield.
We came to Fairfield in '58 when Gary graduated from law school, and we came because we wanted a small college town. And I didn't go to college. I got married right after I went to prep school. So I wasn't a member of a sorority, and I was initiated as an alum into Alpha Psi Delta. And very quickly, because I'm bossy, I know that's why, I became their chapter director. And I wasn't a lot older than a lot of the gals who were in the group. But that was a lot of fun, and those were great days at Parsons when there were umpteen sororities and fraternities out there. And it wasn't just party time. I mean, we did, as chapter advisor, I remember I put my girls on hours, and the wife of the president called me in one day and didn't really think that was the right thing to do. And I said, but there's nothing to do in Fairfield after 10 o'clock at night. So why shouldn't they be on hours? And later, through the years, I've had girls come back and say, you know, we griped about it at the time, but we really appreciated it, particularly if we had a date with somebody we didn't want to be out with. It gave us an excuse to say we had to be in because Mrs. Cameron said we did.
Don't they do that at the University of Iowa?
I wish they still did that.
Right. All things have changed. My goodness, things have changed. But those were fun days. That was...
Now, you said that you grew up in Bloomfield.
Mm-hmm.
And your husband, Gary, also.
Yep. We've known each other a very long time. We met when we were mere children. And then he went to law school in Iowa City, because he was in college when I was in the Easton Prep School. And then we came here. And then we lived in Des Moines for a little while he was Secretary of State. That was fun.
What year was that?
He was elected in 64. 64. Whew. And he was very young at the time.
I was going to say, that wasn't too long after he had graduated from college, right?
Right. Law school in 58. I think he was 30 or 31 when he was elected Secretary of State. And it was very young people, with one or two exceptions. And it was a marvelous time under Harold Hughes as governor. Just had a great time. But we wanted our children to grow up in a small town, and I wasn't going to be a taxi service for the next umpteen years, and they were very small, so we came back here. And
I believe you lived on South 4th Street for a while.
Yes, we did. Oh, in a wonderful house that I painted all chocolate brown on the inside. Nobody could understand that, and I said, well, when you have 3 little kids with grubby hands, you don't have to wash the walls.
Not black? I know that you're known for
yeah, that's true.
Your wonderful taste in black.
Well, black. So it must have been near the Kessel residence?
It was just
a
couple of doors away.
Okay.
Yes, that's how I knew.
Starting to put the two together.
Mm-hmm. And next to your grandmother, next door to your grandmother and grandfather.
So then you have 3 children.
Mm-hmm. And they all live in cities. And they enjoy living in cities, and I enjoy visiting them in those cities, but I think deep down they all regret that or not regret, but they might like living in a small town and raising their children in a small town too, but they're too ensconced where they are, and that's okay.
I think what they miss is the grandparent relationship that a lot of us grew up with.
I certainly miss it.
You know.
Right.
I did too, and that's really, I used to go to my one grandmother and grandfather's house every Sunday, and I have her wonderful music box in there that you crank, and I'd listen to that, and she'd pop popcorn. It was the only thing she could cook. She didn't know how to cook.
Now, is this your grandmother that's in the painting over here? Which, I don't know if
I don't think Richard can get it. She's darkly in the corner.
Wonderful painting.
But you do miss that. That's a wonderful relationship, and as I say, I am not known to be unbossy. And when I'm with my grandchildren, I try very hard to instill things in them that I tried to instill in my own children. I don't spoil them. I don't. Not that most grandparents do, but a lot do. And we used to have something called Camp Cousins, where they're all girls, 4 girls, quite close in age, 2 in Minneapolis and 2 in Des Moines, and they would all come for a week in the summertime. The oldest is now 16, and we didn't have Camp Cousins this summer, and it just broke my heart.
Now, is this when you actually camp out?
Well, yes, we did do that a couple of times.
I remember something about a tent.
Yes, that was most unfortunate. We did that 2 years, and then we decided we could disband that particular end of the activity.
That's a great idea.
What a great grandmother.
Oh, but we made wonderful crafts and took little trips, and they could ride bicycles wherever they wanted to, unlike the cities where they live in. And they all like to cook, so we did lots of cooking and baking, and it just was great, great fun. I love little children. I wish they wouldn't grow up.
And when they get to be teenagers, it's a little different.
It certainly is. Certainly is. One just informed me yesterday that she double pierced her ears.
Well,
I said, well, if it gets to the lips and the tongue and the navel and the eyebrow, I'm quitting being your grandmother.
That brings up a subject. I just got back from our cruise, and we came home, and my daughter Mackenzie has pierced her nose.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, well.
Now you know, Fairfield.
She did that while you were gone?
Yes.
Well, obviously
She knew that we weren't going to let her, but she'll grow out of it.
That's funny it's a thing with me because of the era in which I grew up, I know. And I wouldn't let my daughters pierce their ears when they were little. And then when Druitt was living in China, she wrote that she had pierced her ears. Because I had said, as long as you're under my roof, you can't do it. Well, she wasn't under my roof anymore. But she did it because she was there at a time right after the Republic of China was open to Westerners. And so all the gorgeous earrings she found, all the antique earrings and things, naturally were for pierced ears. They didn't know what any other kind were. So, but she didn't do it while she was under my roof. I don't know what I would have done.
I want you to know we're living with tattoos at our house.
Well, we do that from time to time. When I was gone this fall, the girls came to visit their father. Of course, the tattoos wash off, luckily.
Oh, well, ours don't.
Oh, boy. I'm not sure I could cope in today's world.
Yeah,
And
well.
I know manners also. We had you at the Art Association teach one time about manners and table setting and
Oh, that's a great thing.
yeah.
Well, and it is something that I think youngsters, or girls, not boys necessarily, but little girls are interested in. Because I know my grandchildren have a lot of fun setting fancy things and burning candles every night at dinner and all that kind of stuff. And
I think
life is too
kind of a
fast-paced
lost art.
today.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
I think it's
you don't
coming
have
around
time.
again a little bit.
There are too many activities for children to be in, and parents are too busy if they both work. It just, it's a lot. It was much different different in my day when I was home, when they came home from school. And
Now, I've heard once that out at MSC, they had somebody that used to come in and teach etiquette, and they would have a lady come in and, teach, again, how to set the table and what's the proper way to serve. And she would, I heard that she would have them cutting Snicker bars with a fork and knife properly and to make it fun.
that's the way to do it. Sure.
And
make them sit up straight. That's something that I have a terrible time with my, because my grandmother would, we moved in with my grandmother when I was 4 years old, and she would put a yardstick down my back or threaten to if I didn't sit up very straight at the dinner table. So I did that with my children and my grandchildren too, and it worked. They
I know
pretty
my
good
mother
posture.
was always after me to sit up straight and different things that I have kind of done with my children, but yet again, they're too busy thing.
Well, and they don't pay as much attention now. There is not the innate respect between parents and children that there used to be. It truly isn't. I hear children today say things to their parents that if my children had said to me, they would be lying on their backside. I mean, it would have amounted to child abuse.
well, you can't teach manners when you're going through McDonald's.
That's true.
Manners have to
It's hard
come
to cut
from
something with a knife and fork there, that's true.
You have to be sitting around the table, and in today's families, it doesn't happen as often.
Right.
Or
That's right.
maybe it happens once or twice a week, but when we grew up, in our family, it was every night of the week. You sat together every night, and this place was your place to sit, and you had a duty, whether it was setting the table or clearing the dishes off or whatever.
We use place cards, which is still kind of silly, but the little girls made them when they were little, and we still use those cute little scrawled place cards. But they always got to take turns choosing who got to sit where at the table. So, and they still do that at their house too.
Well, that sounds like still a class that could be used and sounds like a little business there.
Revived, yes.
Could very well be.
And that leads into entertaining. I know you're very good at entertaining
Well, I like to do
elegantly. And I know that sometimes we've been at auctions and split boxes of linens and
Yes. I don't go to auctions anymore. I can't fit anything in. But it's true, and I just love handling pretty things.
dishes.
Lots of
and-
people don't like to have them because they have to wash them, and that's part of my joy. I love handling them. I have one set of china that my great-grandmother painted, probably during the Civil War or thereabouts. I have every single piece for 12, and we
Wow.
used it every Sunday when I was growing up, every
wow.
holiday.
That's great.
I've used it a great deal.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It is. I have every cup, every saucer. But I can remember seeing Myrtle, the housekeeper, lay the tea towels all over the kitchen counters and put those things gently down, and I do the same thing. Although I hang them on a little rack, but
And that
just
is
fun.
that is something that's passed on. Do your children love dishes
they
and linens
entertain
and
beautifully too. They love to do it. And I'm not sure that they can stand any more stuff. I'm not sure I can give them any more, or they've gotten some themselves too. But no, they all, my son and his wife have a beautiful Christmas party every year. She just knocks herself out, and she's a great cook. They're all good cooks. They didn't learn that from me because it took me a long time to get started.
that's another thing that you're really thoughtful about taking soup to someone that's sick.
Well, that's because I have such a large pot. Truly, it's about that big, and I just never have learned to cook for 2 people, or even 4 or 5.
kind of a waste of time.
It is.
It's like, why bother? That's what I think.
Yeah.
When you only cook for 2.
Yep, and I do love to make soup. That's my favorite thing.
Sounds like we need to share some recipes. I need some more soup recipes.
Oh, well, I'm a little dense on recipe. I just sort of put in what I think ought to be there, yes.
Oh,
It always turns out.
Not always. I had peanut butter jelly bars, which became infamous. They were so bad.
Well, we all have those. And another thing that I know that that you do is you go to the nursing home quite often.
Well, I don't as much anymore. I should go more often. I lost my my best friend's mother, whom I went to see every day, passed away last spring. And I only go out occasionally now, which is bad. You get in a habit, and then suddenly something
Then you get out of the
happens,
habit.
and you get out of the habit, because, boy, that's someplace that people sure like to see faces.
And I know that you were so good about going out and painting their fingernails. And I've told lots of people about that because I think what a great idea for young girls to do is go out and do
Yes,
that.
and they love to see young girls. They'd rather see young girls than me, I'm sure. There is a program. There is a grandparent program, which I think both nursing homes take part in that, and perhaps somebody more than that. I'm not sure, but that's been nice too. That's when I was going to see Polly, I would occasionally run into the little girl who was her granddaughter, and her mother was always there with her. Now, whether they go on their own or not, excuse me, I don't know. I don't know whether it's, well, they'd have to have a ride to get out there and a ride home, so mother might as well stay.
Right. Now, I'm trying to think, the first time I met you was at Fairfield Art Association, I'm sure,
Probably.
our involvement.
Probably.
You were president for many years.
Well, probably not as long as you were. But it was a lot of fun, and that was in the days, there again, it was in the days when that was more fun, I think, because we had no competition. So we had all kinds of classes that people were fighting to get into, and children's classes, and we did, Bob Glocke at the high school would fire things. We had our own wheels, and people took pottery classes like crazy, and then he would fire the work, or he would let people blow glass at the high school, or actually do castings. I never did any castings, but we did silk screens. We had all kinds of workshops. But then there was too much competition. Too many other groups offered those kind of things, and it became harder and harder for the Art Association to draw in enough people to make classes
And a lot of
worthwhile.
women starting working. And
Right, because we used to have a lot of things during the day. It was just a great time, and I, at the time, did the exhibitions, which Don Kramer now has done for years and years. But I used to hook a U-Haul onto my station wagon, and boy, did I could back that baby up and down this driveway, which it wasn't easy. But I got to select all the shows, so I just would pick all the artists, mostly in Iowa, that I admired, and go to their homes and choose the work and bring it home and hang it and take it back to them, and that was great. Of course, half of them are dead now. It's been so long, but...
How long did you do that? Do you know your year
no,
period?
I don't.
I know it was formed in 1966.
That was
you
just
were a
as we
founding
came back
member.
from Des Moines. And I probably did the exhibitions for, I truly don't know, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And then I was president after that, and I don't know what the years those were, really.
And I love the story about, I believe it was the first show. People had to sleep there or something, stay all night and guard.
Oh, before we had any kind of a burglar alarm system. Yes, we did. And after we got the burglar alarm system, it was kind of cockeyed. There was a closet, I don't know, quite a few yards from the front door. And you may remember that. You had to go in and set something, and then you had just so many seconds to get out the door. Well, one time I didn't get it set, and I didn't get out the door, and I knew that I would have tripped the silent alarm at the police station, so I immediately called the police station, but before I could even get through to them, this big policeman came in with a drawn gun. I just about fainted dead away. They meant business, though. They were protecting us, that
nice
was for
to
sure.
know they're
I think
there.
he was just driving by, baby, but boy, he was there.
Oh.
Because we've had through the years some pretty fine shows, pretty valuable shows. I remember, years ago we had a Lazansky show, for instance. Dr. Gilman in Iowa City loaned us a lot of his things. We've had some nifty shows. We used to have some traveling shows that would be sponsored by, like, American Can Corporation and that sort of thing. And one I remember was a Da Vinci show that had working models of Da Vinci's inventions and that sort of thing.
Now, were all those at the ground floor of the library?
Yes.
I like that ground floor instead of basement.
Right.
It was actually the basement because we had a little trouble with dampness from time to time.
And then your involvement in community theater.
Well, that's been a lot of fun. We had an original Fairfield Area Community Theater, FACT, back in the, we started it in 75 or 76, I'm not sure. And we did, 4 or 5 productions the first year, including a gorgeous thing called The Contrast.
That was in 76 for the bicentennial. It was wonderful.
And everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It was a gorgeous show, just absolutely beautiful. Wonderful music, great voices, all from the community. But we didn't have an audience. It was August, it was hot, it was unair conditioned.
I was there.
Were you good? I'm so glad. Because that was that one thing, I think maybe I've told this on camera before, where it was not in a theater, it was over in the student union on the campus in a room that, I don't know what the room's like now, it's the room on the north, but it was built only as a lecture hall, so it has no backstage, and in order to get from stage left to stage right, you just had to shinny behind the flats. And this was a play where people were wearing powdered wigs. The flies were just terrible, and of course the spotlights would pick up any little critter flying around the stage, plus the cast wasn't too happy about it. So I went to the hardware store and bought those fly paper things, remember those? And put them on the backs of the flats, forgetting about the height of the wigs. And the first opening night, one lady comes out with a fly paper stuff, and this was a serious play.
I wasn't there for that one. I would remember, I'm sure.
But we did improve through the years, I think. And then it folded. We weren't it folded in 82, I think, or 83, 82.
Well, I know that you have been the backbone for many a set.
Oh, in those days, yes. Not so much anymore. You've done more than I have in the new FACT. But again, I'm bossy and I'm picky, and I designed them, and so I painted them too because I wanted them done exactly the way I wanted them. My wonderful carpenter was Lowell Smith, and he and I built thousands of flats, I swear. They all just sort of seemed to disappear into the woodwork somehow, and we'd have to build a new set for the next production.
And
Those were
Connie
fun.
has been involved in
You're
fact
right.
also.
Not the last few years, but when it started again in '89, they did The Music Man. And, I was pretty busy at the time, but I wanted to have a little piece. I wanted to just sing in the chorus or whatever. And I developed some of my best friendships, And actually, over those next 5 years and some of the other, I think I did 3 or 4
I know you were a
musicals.
doctor.
And then I did 2 or 3 community dinner theaters. And, those friendships, if you ever have a chance to do community theater, you should do it. Because
should.
you'll just, what you get back out of it is so wonderful in your life, in the amount of friendships and memories that you have to carry with you. Some
And
of
you
the
don't have to
funnest
be able to
times.
act.
No,
Because my
Because look at
famous
me,
thing
I
is
did it.
I forgot my one and
I was
only
gonna
line in a
say,
play.
did I hear that
Yes.
you were in one play?
One play. Well, I just said I was the maid, and I just said I have to be there anyway. So I might just, why cast somebody in a part that only has one line? Well, Charlotte Lamb was the mother, and she had to fiddle around and feed me the line because I forgot it. I don't remember to this day what it was. So I stayed backstage after that.
I'm afraid that's
funny.
what I would do.
That's funny.
But you have been so involved in fact theater, and I know you're still treasurer.
Oh yes, I don't know why they
Can't
put up
give
with
it
me.
up.
They can't get rid of me. They just, and I am not a mathematician. But I'm treasurer of several things, which is probably a mistake on all their parts.
Oh, and I know that FACT is coming up with a play for this winter, which is a comedy.
It's called Soup du Jour. It will be the last 2 weeks of January at the Best Western, as we've done before, and it's written by the same man who wrote
Monkey Business?
Monkey Business 1 and 2. The
Which-
same team. They live in Chicago now. And those were so funny.
And I believe the cast has been selected
It hasn't.
by now.
I can't tell you what it is.
That's all
because I
right. It'll be a
haven't-
surprise.
Right. But Scott Schlechter is our director, has been for quite a while, and he's so terrific to work with and so innovative and laid
Full of
back.
energy.
And he is an incredible fella. So, there's lots to do. If anybody's interested, this is a real plug because,
Is,
as we say, you don't have to walk across the stage.
Right,
There are a
makeup
lot of
and-
other things to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of small things that go on behind the scenes that have to get done, and somebody has to do them.
Right.
And,
Now, looking forward to next summer, do they have a play selected for then, or
Yes. Wish I could think what it is. It's either Hello Dolly or Mame. I
a
think it's Mame.
musical?
Well, we do a musical every summer. And of course, this time we did the remake of The Music Man, which was extremely successful.
Yes,
we made
it
more money
was.
than we've ever made. I was just tickled to death. I could put money in savings. And I think we'll do it at the high school again next year. We've done it all these years at the Ad Ground Theater, and this year the schedules didn't mesh, and so we were able to use the rejuvenated auditorium at the high school, and it just worked real well. They don't have air conditioning, but other than that, it worked
it
beautifully.
was tolerable
and we
though
were-
last year, though. Really.
It was not for rehearsal. There were some people almost passing out a few days before we opened, but it did cool down during the performances, and we played. Actually, I worked the box office too, and the last night I was tearing up pieces of paper and making them into tickets, and I said, just give this to the usher and tell him Nan says it's okay.
Reminds me of something else we did once.
Yes, right.
Taking tickets
Fill those seats.
from the people driving through and giving them to the next people.
Anything to make a buck.
Oh, and so that is part of the reason that we need a civic center also, and you're involved in the
That's true.
civic center board.
Yes, we do need a civic center badly for any number of reasons. Kind of civic center / convention center. The convention center is needed in this part of the state, and we are now talking about a scaled down version of what we started talking about, but it's something that if and when we mount a campaign, I do hope the people in town will think seriously about it, because it's something that could ultimately be real good for the community too, not just because we would be able to offer so many things, but it would bring in a good deal of revenue through conventions to the city.
Now,
And-
you do have some money raised for that now, right? How
We
much?
do.
How much do you have raised towards?
Well, I'm treasurer of that too. You'd think I could say right offhand, but actually I'm not sure. We're going to use what we have raised as matching funds for a grant that we're applying for.
For a study.
Right, to do a feasibility study. And because if we can't get the community behind it, there's not much point in doing it. And we can't scale it down much more than we already have, or there also is no point in doing it.
And have they looked at buildings that are already built and there's nothing suitable, or?
No,
There's
not for
still-
what we talk about. We could. There are several places that if all you wanted was a stage, we probably could do it. But we're talking, I can't remember the sizes, but we're talking, so that you can move in huge trucks to unload equipment and trailer things full of exhibits and that kind of stuff.
Such a multi-purpose type that would need a lot of parking, and that's one of the big problems. But
And that's why I do almost hate to just call it a civic center, because then people immediately think nothing but stage productions.
Right.
And that isn't true. We would be aiming at a great many other things besides that. And things that people now have to go outside the community for, or do in little increments someplace. So I don't know how long it'll be before we actually get something mounted that amounts to anything, but we'll see. We'll see. The Ag Board has graciously given us land behind the ag grounds, which would take a great deal of work, or a lot of earth moving, but it would be a marvelous spot because we wouldn't be hemmed in by anything. But we have looked at alternate sites, but we just can't come up with anything that is already available that would work at all. So we'll see.
so, have we left anything out in your local community involvement? I know there's tons
Oh,
more.
well.
Tons more.
Nothing of any real importance. I don't play the flute. I don't
Sing.
don't sing. I've been asked not to. I've been asked not to sing in the community chorus.
But you're also well known for your travels. And we love to hear about some of the places that you have been that we normally wouldn't pick out, maybe to visit, like Siberia.
Well, that's true, and that trip was last summer. I had been to Russia before, to St. Petersburg and Moscow, and the beautiful places. The trip last summer, though, was probably my favorite trip of all time.
Really?
It was.
Now, did you go by yourself on a tour, or
This was
what?
with Friendship Force.
Okay.
And we no longer have a Friendship Force chapter here, so I belong to the Des Moines chapter. I think the only trip I've been on with them was to Peru. The rest of them have been national trips, where it's about 25 people from all across the country. And this year, I just recently came back from Eastern Europe. There were several countries I had never been in before, Hungary and Slovakia. The rest I had been, but it was very interesting to see. We started out in Cottbus, which is a city almost on the Polish border in what we would have called East Germany. And it was so affluent, I could not believe it. I went over there with my suitcase loaded with soap and balloons and gum and...
Balloons?
Balloons are very popular with children.
Okay, I was like trying to follow the rationale about why
I
we
put
would
them in
need
my
balloons.
fanny packs, and then, I remember one time I think we were in Singapore maybe, or on the lake in Hong Kong. I don't know, doesn't matter. And, children around the world, Americans are very friendly, more friendly than any other nationality that I know of. But you can blow up a balloon and hand it to a little kid sitting on his mama's lap, and he'll take it. I also carry Hot Wheels and all kinds of stuff. It's not as easy to establish something with a child, and I can't remember the Chinese for it, but I can remember when my daughter Druid and I went to China a couple of years ago, trying to give a little boy a Hot Wheels, and he was yelling something at me, and she speaks Chinese, and she said, "Mother, don't keep trying to give it to him. He's telling you he doesn't want it."
Oh, no. And your daughter speaks Chinese, right?
Mm-hmm. She studied, she got a master's at Iowa, and then she studied over there. And that was a great deal of fun. And that same summer I went to Paris with my other daughter. But I found out her French was pretty faulty, and mine is rather faulty too after all these years. But I had to explain a lot of things to her. Those were good trips, very nice trips. But the one to Siberia was the neatest because we started out in Irkutsk, which I had never even heard of. Now that's ridiculous, probably you have, but I haven't, and I had never heard of Lake Baikal. We went in through Vladivostok, went in from Seattle, that direction. Irkutsk is a good-sized city. Lake Baikal is a huge lake. It's long and skinny. It would run from Minneapolis to the Missouri border. But it's not real wide, but it is the deepest lake in the world. Geez, I should have looked these facts up. It contains 1/5 of all the fresh water in the world. It is pristine so far. They drink it. It has hundreds of varieties of life in it, many of which don't exist anyplace else in the world. It's really fascinating. But Irkutsk was the city. When you were sent to Siberia, that's where you were sent. It's either 1,000 kilometers or 1,000 miles from, or 10,000 from Moscow. I can't remember which. But anyway, it's a heck of a long way. And then you were sent maybe 1,000 miles north of that. And they only have about 6 weeks of summer. I was there in the summer, and it was very interesting. For instance, and I do not understand this, but I'm not a botanist. They had fruit trees that flowered, but because of the short growing season, never bore fruit. Now, how can it regenerate itself if it doesn't bear any fruit? Anyway, that part was very interesting, and their way of life, very Spartan. Lovely people. It's very difficult to communicate with them except email. I've got a whole ton of clothes upstairs that I bought. Yes, one gal has email. She's a charming gal who teaches English. And I think it's probably a cooperative one because it takes a long time to get an answer. At the end of that home hosting, which was a week, and it was, the toilet broke, so you had to go next door and run water, in a thing and go put it in there. That's no big deal. The hot water went off the day I got there, so I didn't bathe for a whole week. That's no big deal either. I mean, it wasn't that warm, so it really didn't matter. But it's a pretty Spartan existence that they live, but they're happy because they don't know anything else.
What about food and, can you get fresh vegetables and fresh fruit and very expensive, I would imagine?
Very expensive, and they grow tomatoes and cucumbers. I had tomatoes and cucumbers 3 times a day for 3 weeks, I swear, which is fine. I love tomatoes and cucumbers. They at that point were coming up from China.
That'd be a weight loss program for me.
I never lose weight when I travel. It's ridiculous. I even ate tongue, one of the few things I don't care for, but they served it to me, and I knew it had to be at some sacrifice, so I cut it up in little teeny pieces, and I, stuck it under the mashed potatoes or whatever, or ate it with a piece of cucumber and tomato wedged around it. Yeah. That was just a delightful stay. Then we left, and each of these trips, for instance, the one this summer too, after the home hosting, then Friendship Force International plans a trip for you. We went to a resort on Lake Baikal. Now this was early in the season. I can't think, we were there in June, I think. So we were the first people there. And I swear to God, it was the resort from hell. I can't even begin to describe it to you. It was just awful, horrible. Cold, and they hadn't mowed the grass. The grass was this high. I am so smart. I wear yellow boots. I carry them with me every place I go. I've worn them all over the earth, and I don't know why other people aren't that smart because I was walking around with dry feet. Everybody else was limping around with wet, soggy Nikes on. Luckily, we were only there
So traveling trips from Nan. Here comes a book.
Yellow
I can
boots.
just tell.
But it was funny because that was last year, and this year, in the email I got from Marina, she said, "We're going to Lake Baikal over the 4th of July, and I can hardly wait." And I thought, well, I think possibly they're going to a different place than we went. I don't know.
That's funny.
Then we went on to Mongolia, and that was neat. We spent 2 nights out in the steppes staying in, I should have brought one in the round tents. In National Geographic, they've always called them yurts. They call them gers, G-E-R. They're all absolutely identical. It's incredible how they assemble them and disassemble them. They are maybe, I don't know, 30 feet in diameter, possibly. And the whole family lives in there, several generations usually. Right in the middle is a cook stove, a wood-burning, old-fashioned stove with a huge pot on it, which, I mean big pot, like my soup pot, which contained yogurt.
Oh.
Their diet consists of nothing but meat and milk. And they are charming-looking people. They have some tooth problems, but other than that, they're nomadic, and they live in a climate that gets 70 below in the wintertime. They can't grow vegetables. They have schools. Their children go to schools. But anyway, this pot in the middle of the table with the yogurt, or the middle of the stove, one of the delicacy in the summertime is fermented mare's milk. Now, I love milk, and I'm fond of most things fermented.
No, it ferments.
But thank heavens it had been a real dry spring, and the mares needed all their milk for their foals, so I didn't have to drink fermented mare's milk, because I would not have refused. But that was a nifty experience. That really, for some unknown reason, there were 4 to a gur, and I was the one to whom it fell to keep the fire burning all night. Now they furnished the wood for us,
Probably
but there's not a lot of trees. Well, part of it. That was part of it. Because I had to go out to the body several times in the night too, and that was a fur piece. And I just kept my boots where I can hop right into them. But the little pieces of wood were only about like that. So you had to put in quite a bit. I mean, it burned quickly. And if it went out, tough. How are you going to relight it? I mean, nobody smokes anymore. I do carry a lighter, and even though I don't no longer smoke, but
Boots and a lighter, everybody. Got that?
yeah, right, and a corkscrew.
And a corkscrew.
But I kept the fires burning. I was awake all night. Oh, but that was fun. That, I think, was the neatest trip. And a city like Ulaanbaatar is quite modern. They had just opened to Western tourists the last year or two. But the hotel where we stayed there was very nice. They were very friendly people, very friendly. The Russians could take a lesson from them. The Russians ain't going to make it. I'm sorry. It's a very, very sad country on both ends. And they continue to, the first time I was there was right after the breakup of the Soviet Union. They are still just selling the same things as souvenirs and whatever. They aren't using any imagination at all. Of course, the black market controls everything. It's very sad, but Mongolia, I would encourage people to go to. It was a charming, charming place.
We have a neighbor that's well, I guess he's descends from Russia, but he came from one of the states or whatever that broke off. It's right next to it, and he did some work for us, and he ate dinner with us, and he said, "I still can't find bread in Fairfield. I stick my finger in it, and it's like air." It was so cute. He's looking for this hard, crusty bread, and it's real, it was so cute the way he said it.
And I think they do anything known to man possible to cabbage. I love cabbage. It's fine. I don't care. But boy, I ate it a lot. You wouldn't think you could eat it a lot of different ways. And then I ate fish that came from Lake Baikal. It's called omul. There are many, many varieties. Omul happens to be one of the varieties that doesn't exist anyplace else in the world. I hate those babies fried and poached and raw, which didn't throw me too much. And they sell them just like in New York. They sell chestnuts in little things all over on the streets of New York. They sell, what am I trying to say? Dried omul in a newspaper.
They sell those in Paris, right? What am I thinking of?
Chestnuts?
Chestnuts?
Uh-huh.
No.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They sell them in Paris.
Yes.
I'm not fond of those either.
No,
So you've also been south of the border, so to speak, down in South America, and I know you've
I
been
had
to
always
Peru.
wanted to go to Peru. I always wanted to see Machu Picchu because when I was a little girl, my grandmother read to me about Machu Picchu, and it just absolutely fascinated me. It wasn't discovered as long ago as you think. I think maybe it was in the late 20s that it was actually developed, because it's very high. This time, I have a little fear of heights. And this time, when I was coming across from Salzburg to Munich, I thought, this is probably the last time I'm ever going to be here. I've been in Germany a number of times, and I want to go to Berchtesgaden, up to the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's thing on top of the mountain. So, and that wasn't on the itinerary, but I said to the guide, you know, would you see that we can go up there? And we did. And I made it. I have a picture of me standing there by the railing. And it's not quite as high. Machu Picchu is, I think, maybe 12,000 or 11,000 feet or something like that. And it's up hairpin stuff to get there.
But do you drive in cars, trucks, or buses or whatever to get up there? Or
and it's a one-lane road. It's mostly buses that go up.
What happens if you meet somebody, or you don't?
Well, yeah, you do. One of you backs down. I never did figure out, I think the downcoming vehicle has the right of way, and the other guy has to back up until he comes to some little dugout place, sort of like those things out in Washington State where you pull off if you're driving too slow, which I have had to do several times when I was out there.
So I would have to get out and walk because I wouldn't trust the bus driver.
Well, but you're looking down so far into the Valley of Kings, and you're, you know, I don't think you'd get out either.
Oh gosh. Well, see, I have a real desire to go there. I mean,
wait, and you should go soon. Right now, there's only one hotel at the top. Someplace not long ago, I read that they're going to really work on making the transportation up there easier and build some more stuff, and it's a real shame because it is just as you see it in the photographs. I mean, it's just incredible. Again, no safety rails and stuff, and I was out there walking, but I have been very lucky in my lifetime. I've been at the right place at the right time. When we were at Berchtesgaden at the Eagle's Nest, it was a clear, beautiful day, and of course you can see practically all of Austria from there, and it's just beautiful. When we went to Machu Picchu, frequently the mountain itself is shrouded in stuff, and it rolls in real early, in about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But it was clear and sunshiny, and we could see everything, and then we got up the next morning real early to watch the sunrise. It's amazing. Went to Mount Cook in New Zealand, and there are people who live there who've never seen Mount Cook on a clear day. And the one day we were there, it was clear as a bell, and I took a little plane with my stomach in my pocket and got out and walked around on the glacier up there. Because again, I thought, well, I'll never be here again, so I might as well do it.
Now, Machu Picchu is, people went there to live a spiritual life or something, right? Is that correct?
Well, they don't know exactly for sure whether it was a retreat from the Spaniards, whether it was a thing where only priests went. There are a lot of religious things. We had a wonderful guide who explained everything to us. Or whether, you know, whole families lived there. Of course, priests had families in those days. They just aren't sure what the total use of it was. And the terracing is so incredible because they farmed. Of course, they were able to be totally self-sufficient. Now, they got water, I presume, just by rainwater, because it'd be a heck of a thing to try to drill a well down those mountains. And it was Bingham, I think. Stephen Bingham was the man the Englishman or no, he was from the United States, I think. Well, I don't know. Look it up in your Funkin' Wagnalls. I forgot. Who discovered it, so to speak. It had been discovered before, but he was the one who really promoted and worked on it pretty hard. And we stayed in Cusco one night on our way up, and I believe one night on our way back, too, in probably one of the crummiest hotels I've ever been in my life, with my traveling partner, Martha Watson. It's the only time that I've ever not wanted to put my head on a pillow without putting something between me and the pillow. But again, you know, just a fantastically interesting trip.
And did you get this necklace on that trip?
We spent the last week in the rainforest up near Iquitos, up on the northern border of Peru, above Lima. Well, this was just, I hadn't particularly looked forward to that experience, but it was one of the neatest experiences of my life. It rains every night, straight down, so it never rains in because there are no windows. I mean, we were in little hut things, but no windows or anything. And during the day, it's so cotton picking hot that I just wore the same shorts and t-shirt the whole time I was there, because who cared? I mean, they were soaking wet 5 minutes after the day started anyway, and each night I'd just hang them up where the morning sun would hit them, so they'd be dry when I put them on. And again, I was the only person with boots. And we walked back through for about, I don't know, an hour's walk into the forest to find the Indian tribe from whom I bought this necklace. And people were slipping and sliding off logs and, getting their feet all yucky, and I'm just slopping along in my yellow boots. Those yellow boots I could have sold for a fortune at several different places.
Now, these knee-high boots?
No, well, almost. Yeah,
they're up to your calves.
I call them my Wellingtons. They're just, they come just below my knee.
Okay.
They're not really Wellingtons.
But you've got a
well, I don't know what, it's part of a baby piranha jaw, and berries and beads and feathers. And I bought several of them, and I carried home 3 blowguns that I bought in that village too. Gary has one in the office, and I bought my son and son-in-law one. And strangely enough, I had no problem getting them on the plane or anything. Nobody seemed to realize what they were or think that they might possibly be a weapon. And the only person who recognized it was somebody at one of the plane changes that we had to make who was originally from Peru and knew what they were.
Is this for blow darts?
The one I really wanted to bring was just too long. It was totally unadorned and probably 6 or 7 feet long and very small. The ones I brought were, I think, carved probably to sell people. I'm not sure that they're ones they really use. They were about that big, and I've forgotten. I think they have carving, and they have feathers and beads and stuff hanging on them too. If you want to see one, you can go to Gary's office. It's up there with all the other stuff that I just keep shoving up there. But that's also a trip that if you're even vaguely thinking of do it now before it changes too much. The Indians are sweet, attractive people. One day they obviously had been really told they weren't supposed to try to sell us things or molest us or whatever. And once we went in the door to the hotel in Cusco, that was it. They were not allowed to come in. The women all carry babies kind of papoose on their back, and there was a sweet young woman with a baby outside, so I gave the little baby a doll, a soft rag doll. And the mother grinned, and the next morning the mother was waiting at the door, and they wouldn't let her in. She brought me, well, it's right over here. Well, I can't get up. She brought me a little hand-painted ashtray, a little ceramic ashtray. Oh. Can I go over there without?
If we go carefully.
I'll go backwards. It's no big deal, but it's just a cute little thing. And I thought that was so sweet that she, wanted to bring me something because I had given her baby something. I certainly didn't expect her to appear again. Huh. But it's a lovely country full of very lovely people. Oh, there's a pen I've been looking for. My dictionary, my biographical dictionary's over there. When I do crossword puzzles, I must have.
Which you're famous for those.
Yes, also. Right. And I'm either getting dumber or they're getting tougher.
So in your travels, do you have another place planned that you're going to go?
Actually, I don't.
You don't?
I know that sounds almost snobby to say that I've run out of places. There are a lot of places I really don't care to go. And I don't know why I pick the places I do. For instance, why I'd wanted all my life to go to New Zealand and didn't give a hoot about Australia. Passed up the local Friendship Forest trip that went to Australia. I can't tell you why. One place that almost everybody wants to go initially is Scandinavia, and I have no interest whatsoever in going to Scandinavia. I don't know, because I've gone back a number of times, as I said, to Germany and Belgium and the Netherlands and that area. There are a lot of places in France I'd like to go that I didn't see when we went to Paris, because we didn't go. Went to Giverny and a few other places, but didn't get down into the south at all in the wine country.
Do you find that most people, no matter where you go, welcome the Americans and the guests, so to speak? And
well, of course, traveling with Friendship Forest is a very nice way to do it, because those people want us there. Mm-hmm. They're there inviting us into their homes and sharing with us everything they have. I think the majority of people feel that way. And one thing I'd always heard, and I don't know how you found it, Susan, but when we went to Paris, I've always heard how unpleasant the Parisians were and how they dislike Americans so intensely. Well, for one thing, we went in August, which is the perfect time to go because most of the Parisians go away. And so we could wander and we did more than one night, walk all the way down the Champs-Élysées from clear down to the Arc de Triomphe, and very little traffic, whatever. But we just loved everybody we ran into. We went back to the same restaurant more than once in our neighborhood where we were staying.
I found they wanted to speak English. They were really trying. I think it's a new generation, maybe.
That could be.
I know maybe 20 years ago or more, the first time we went, we did experience some rudeness.
Did you really?
But this time, a little over a year ago, not at all. They were wonderful. And I can't wait to go back.
And I think, for instance, in Russia, where people don't speak English, or the majority of the people don't, or didn't, maybe they're learning now. Anyway, over behind Richard, I have a great tray of, I cannot tell you how many, they're big on pins, on medals. And I would be just in the metro or on a bus. Of course, I always wear my Friendship Force insignia and my Friendship Force pins, and we had ones that said Friendship Force Peace and Understanding in Russian as well as English. So I bought a bunch of them and would give them to people. And sometimes before I gave them one, they would tap me on the arm and hand me 2 or 3 funny little medals. I don't know what they say because I don't read the Cyrillic language. And one girl, a very, very sweet girl in Leningrad, I spent a great deal of time with her. She spoke English. She celebrated her 16th birthday while I was there, and for some unknown reason, by pure luck, I had a full outfit that would fit her that I'd never worn, so I could give her a birthday present. What was I going to say about her? Oh, her English was well-nigh perfect, just incredible. And she, the very first night I was there, it was during August, it was during the White Nights, it was the first time I experienced it, and I really wasn't prepared for it, that you just, you can stay up all night if you want to, because the sun doesn't set. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, we were cruising around looking at Leningrad's built on a bunch of islands, and we were just, my host couldn't speak any English, but he grew up there and he was pointing all these things out. She was interpreting. We came to a park that he wanted to show me where he'd played as a child. It was full of chestnut trees. I said, oh, those are so beautiful. We have those on the East Coast, but we don't have them where I live in the Middle West. And I started to recite under the spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands, and this little Anya picked it up. The smith, a mighty man is he, with strong and sinewy hands. I was just flabbergasted. Wow. She had read so much English, American literature, just unbelievable. But that's, the sad thing is her family was all very bright. Her father was is a college professor, and yet they're just poor as church mice. The mother works as an interpreter and 2 or 3 other things just to put food on the table, and that was in '92. I have no idea what they're going through now. None whatsoever.
I think there's still some struggles.
And when I left, she gave me all of her, she'd been in the Red Guard, of course, as a child, the communist children's thing, and she gave me all her medals. And I said, no, Anya, don't do that, because someday when you're grown up, you're going to want to show your children those, or your grandchildren. But they're over there. She absolutely wanted me to have them. She wouldn't keep them. So
and are you still in touch with her?
No.
No.
I got one letter from her, and I never knew if she received any of my letters. And I was going to send her books, because she said, would you make a list of things you think I ought to read? I mean, good grief, she'd read Hemingway and Steinbeck and everybody you can think of. I don't know how I could have contributed to that. But there is a lady in Florida who is going to St. Petersburg. Oh, shoot, she left today. Well, I was going to send a letter via her to see if she could get it through, and I forgot to write it. See, I don't always get those letters written.
Well, someday, somewhere, when you least expect it.
I'll go back. Because St. Petersburg is a gorgeous city.
What happened to the Fairfield Friendship Force? There wasn't enough interest? Did it kind of just melt
Well,
away? And if people are interested then in being
We could
involved, is
reform
there?
it in a minute if people would want to. It was like many organizations. It was the same people doing all the work. We hadn't existed very long. We were one of the very earliest friendship forces.
What's involved in having a chapter or whatever you call it?
Well, you home host in return. Some instances, you host the people who have hosted you. For instance, we hosted people from St. Petersburg in this instance, within just a couple of weeks after we got back from our trip to Russia. And my hostess in St. Petersburg, I hosted here when she came.
Are there
that doesn't
annual
happen all the
dues
time.
and that kind of thing?
Very minimal. For instance,
So it's not expensive in
Not at
that
all.
sense.
And the trips for what you get are not expensive. Now this trip, this fall that I was on, I don't know how things are split up anymore. They would have gotten so much money per person from each of us, probably $100, not to the family, but to the chapter over there. And they have, it varies, but you have always a farewell banquet and sometimes a welcoming banquet, and they give you little gifts. I have a coffee mug and some things that they had made for us. But then all our other trip this year, I would imagine, I'm not even sure, but I think my total cost was right at $3,000. Now that's for 3 weeks. And the part that makes it reasonable is that you're home hosted the first week. We got cut short too by the hurricane. We spent a night in O'Hare and a night in Newark, New Jersey, which was a real thrill on our way, and finally got out.
So you're hosted for 1 week and then you're on your own.
Sometimes I've only stayed 2 weeks, although it's such a pain to get there and a pain to get home that I would rather stay 3 weeks if I'm going to go. But on the first 2 or 3 I went on, we were home hosted in 2 different places. 1 week, say, in Germany, and then I can't think where I went for the second week. 1 week in the Netherlands and a week in Germany. And it's very interesting, too, to particularly if you get people who are good English speaking and have read a lot in English and whatever, to see what exists between the European countries. Because it's a real insight as to how the European community is going to work. There are many countries that still bear a lot of scars from the Second World War and that sort of thing, and it's real interesting to talk to them. This time, as I say, I was so amazed by what we saw in East Germany. I couldn't believe it. I'd seen East Germany before, and it was drab and dreary, not a flower, not a color, nothing. And because we went all the way through it when it was east. And then I'd been back once in East Germany after the wall came down in Dresden. But everybody drives a new car, all the roads are brand new. It's just
When did you start traveling initially?
not that long ago, really. 85 or something like that.
Before that, you hadn't been out of the country?
I'd never been abroad. Been to Mexico and Canada, and that was it.
I have a
And this is-
passport.
Well, use it.
Just in hopes that I can
My
go sometime.
daughter hopes that she's working on getting a passport, and she hopes that she's going to go to France either spring break or this Christmas break
Mackenzie?
by herself.
By herself?
Yeah.
Mackenzie?
To see
Well,
Natalie
my
Hunt.
daughter did that back in the 70s. When she
convinced.
graduated from high school, we sent her to, she worked as an au pair in Germany, in Bonn. It was real funny. She spoke fluent French and got moved around, I mean, not physically, but on paper, and ended up in Germany. Didn't speak a word of German, learned a little, but didn't speak it at the time. But then she just, put on her backpack and off she went to Paris by herself. Of course, speaking the language. And does Mackenzie speak French?
She's taking Spanish.
Oh, well, that won't do it. Because really, that's the key. Knowing what people are saying, if you're going to be alone. I'm not sure I would do it today.
Well, she's going to hope to go see Natalie Hunt, and that would be the good
she's
thing.
down in Strasbourg, I think.
That would be the good part about going when she has someone there that's been there a while that could show her. But I guess I can't say enough about being able to travel and learning about different people and seeing the way
it is
people
wonderful,
live.
and really, if someone would be interested, we could reform Friendship Force in a hurry because it's a wonderful way to travel. It's not for
Are
everybody.
you saying
I
you would be
realize that.
treasurer?
That's That's one thing I was not treasurer of which I was not treasurer. I was president, but not treasurer. But they busted it up when I was at a Friendship Force festival on Bali, and then being home hosted in Indonesia, and we went to Kuala Lumpur. We saw a lot of that part of the world, and I got home and they had dissolved it. But I didn't blame people because it was the same people doing all the work. And one of the trips that we went on was to England, and we had a huge group that went. And many of the people then weren't kind enough to reciprocate, and host here when people came. It was a good opportunity to travel abroad, but they didn't really want to pitch in and help.
Okay, so if they want to have a chapter here, you got to pitch in, or there's a chapter in, you said Des Moines, that you belong to.
There's one in Davenport, one in, I think, maybe Marshalltown, one in Sheraton, I believe.
Okay.
They're not as many as there used to be, and the organization has changed a great deal. But it's still a marvelous opportunity.
Great.
So, back here in Fairfield. Thank you, Nan, so much for, today's your birthday, too.
Yes,
I can't
it
believe
is, and I'm not telling you which one.
that you
97.
agreed to having this interview today on your birthday. That
Well, I
just
wasn't
goes
doing
to
anything
show.
else except going out for dinner. I don't have to cook because Jean Egley's making my dinner.
Oh, I would take that. He's a great cook.
All right.
So we should say that our next show is going to be with Jean and Nell Egley, and so we hope that people will tune in for that. It's going to be really interesting.
It will be, indeed.
And our sponsor again for this show has been,
Central Valley Bank.
and we've been opening a door in Fairfield to Nan Cameron's life, and she shared a lot of
More than you wanted to hear, I know.
a lot of things with you, and we'd like to thank you for watching FPAC Channel 9.